Welcome to our plenary session. My name is Marta White, and I'm co-chairing this with my partner Risa, whom I'm sure you all know. All right, so we have several presentations. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. For some reason, I'm first, so let me get started. Mine is going to be called the Pedagogy of Paradigms, and I'm looking at this from an educational standpoint. I want to look at educational enrichment with ethos, pathos, and logos. So let me proceed. My inspiration for this comes from several sources. So I looked at one of the models on the conference website, and then I thought about Kuhn and what he had done with paradigms. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, this we don't need. And then I came across Isaac's work from 2012, where he was critiquing Kuhn's work. And I always like Professor Najib's term about being an intellectual tourist. I know we all do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Let me just plug it.
Sure. So these are all the inspiration for this talk today.
There you go. There you go. Back, forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. Thanks. So this is the model from the conference website, and in this model we have the cybernetics loops. They're modified through the positive, negative feedback loops, and their relationship with academic globalization, intercultural communication, and these are all supported by the systemic cybernetics and informatics. So I really liked this model, and from here, I thought these were cornerstones, and they were certainly important for these relationships. And then I looked at Kuhn and incorporated Aristotle's terms of ethos, pathos, logos, and Isaac's work. Also, we heard about Schumpeter this morning, enriching the education through these paradigms. So, looking at Kuhn, structure of scientific revolutions, he argued that there were periods of revolutionary science that interrupted normal science. And this discovery of anomalies during these revolutions leads to new paradigms. So these are game changers. And these new paradigms grapple with new questions of old data, and they transcend beyond any previous paradigms, changing rules of the game and mapping us with new directions. Okay, so meanwhile, I'm always thinking education. How can I make my classes more exciting, more interesting, more involved? And I know that's a challenge for all of us. So Kuhn really has what I think is a nonlinear approach, where he argues that the evolution of scientific theory does not emerge from any straightforward accumulation of facts, but rather from a set of changing intellectual circumstances and possibilities, which I think is commensurate with a nonlinear approach. So from Ruth, we have scientific revolutions where we have normal science, a crisis, a revolution, and then we have a new normal science. So scientific knowledge and scientific practice have a loop that really goes forward and backwards, and then from this, we have how science matters and what kind of science really to focus on. So the bottom line is this, from Rouse's look at Kuhn's philosophy and scientific practice. So, looking at paradigms, we have paradigmatic orthogonality on the left, which challenges current view and is nonlinear and statistically unrelated. And then on the opposite end of this continuum, we have paradigms that are compatible, support current paradigms, are more linear, and are more statistically related. So on one side, we have orthogonal information, but on the other side we have completely compatible, related information. And I see this really as a continuum of paradigms. So what Isaac did in Kuhn's education looked at teaching and learning issues relative to philosophical position that were described in Kuhn's structure of scientific revolutions, and he further developed our understanding of these issues as they bear on Kuhn's theory of science. So then I was thinking about Trivium, and this Trivium means, okay, this is the place where three roads meet. What are these three roads? Well, they refer to the lower division of the seven liberal arts facets, looking at grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And you can see the symbol up there in the upper left-hand corner. And these relate to input, process, and output. The upper division of this medieval education looked at arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And all of these related to number. So either number or number in space, number in time, or number in space and time. So the Trivium, it's okay. That was good music there. These were really the seven liberal arts dimensions of classical antiquity. But let's see. Really, these three subjects were established in ancient Greece as expressed in Plato's writings, this Trivium. Okay, but the Middle Ages, these three subjects became denoted as the Trivium. Okay, so.
Sorry, just for clarification, the Trivium originally grammar, rhetoric, and dialectics. It's a logic I've never heard. Where did you get the logic in? That it's much more comprehensive.
It's much more comprehensive?
Because it's grammar, rhetoric, and dialectics. If you take dialectics as logic, I have my difficulties.
Okay, we can certainly explore that.
It's a sequence as well. Rhetoric on the second place.
Okay, so
But anyway.
do you agree with the input, process, and output? Do you agree with the input, the process, and the output?
No. Dialectics is the heart of discourse.
Okay. So you don't agree with the input, process, output model. Okay.
The quadrivium, part of the quadrivium in my opinion.
Is what, the logic?
Well, never called logic, of course.
Okay. Well,
It's much more comprehensive if you say logic.
Logic is more related to the system itself.
right.
Yeah.
Includes not only logic is not only the process but the input and outputs.
Sorry,
It's okay. No, you're fine. You're fine. I mean, that's what this is all about, is to have a conversation like this.
Before possibly, creative destruction in Schumpeter 1934 is only by implication. If you want to really cite it, you must write 1942. That's where he coined the phrase
Okay.
in capitalism, socialism, and democracy.
I really enjoyed your talk this morning, and there were things that I didn't know about Schumpeter. I didn't know that he wanted to be the best horseback rider, and I didn't know that he wanted to be the best lover or economist. But, he's probably one of those three, but perhaps some future research will establish some of the others. But I will certainly look into this and consider this, so thank you for your comment. It's interesting, though, because that's the trilogy that I found, the symbol. Yeah. Okay. So let me move on. Yes, so this is the model from the conference website, and I see this as linear and nonlinear. And if we think about paradigm education versus education paradigm, what I'm wondering is if you see a difference between those and whether one process tends to be more linear and the other more nonlinear, something that we can think about and discuss. Perhaps you have. Okay, so in looking at the link to the ethos, pathos, and logos, if rhetoric is persuasion, and we have our basic definitions of ethos, pathos, and logos, where ethics is ethical appeal, persuasion emanates from the credibility of the speaker, pathos is more emotional appeal, logos is logical, then I'm going to take the model from the conference website and change it a little bit to incorporate the ethos, pathos, and logos using paradigms to enrich the education, and looking at these paradigms as primarily focusing on one of these three, either ethos, pathos, and logos. So let me share with you, for ethos, I thought that I would share, I call a CSR story. Okay, so let's see, help me with, do I just click on this here? We want to make it bigger or no? There's no volume.
In the making of our products. And then in the summer of 1994, we began to hear questions from our customers.
This is about a company called Interface. They make carpets.
And we didn't have answers. The real answer was not very much. And it really disturbed many of our people, not me so much as them. And a group in our research department decided to convene a task force and bring people from our businesses around the world to come together to assess our company's worldwide environmental position, to begin to frame answers for those customers. They asked me if I would come and speak to that group and give them a kickoff speech to launch this new task force with an environmental vision. And I didn't have an environmental vision. I did not want to make that speech. And at sort of the propitious moment, this book landed on my desk. It was Paul Hawkins' book, The Ecology of Commerce. And I began to read The Ecology of Commerce, really desperate for inspiration. And very quickly, into that book, I found the phrase, the death of birth. It was E.O. Wilson's expression for species extinction, the death of birth. And it was a point of a spear into my chest. And I read on, and the spear went deeper, and it became an epiphanal experience, a total change of mindset for myself, and a change of paradigm. Can any product be made sustainably? Well, not any and every product. Can we make landmines sustainably? Well, I don't think so. There's a more fundamental question than that about landmines. Some products ought not be made at all unless we can make carpets sustainably. You know, perhaps we don't have a place in a sustainable world, but neither does anybody else making products unsustainably. One day, early in this journey, it dawned on me that the way I've been running Interface is the way of the plunderer. Plundering something that's not mine, something that belongs to every creature on earth. And I said to myself, my goodness, the day must come when this is illegal. That when plundering is not allowed, I mean, it must come. So I said to myself, my goodness, someday people like me will end up in jail. When I think of what could be, I visualized an organization of people committed
So this is one example of a paradigm.
To scale, that point at the top, symbol.
Thanks. That goes to the ethos side of us. Pathos, we all know about unfortunate accident where a child fell into the zoo and they had to kill the silverback gorilla. Another story, another paradigm that really tugs at our heartstrings, so this would be more of a pathos. And then logos, the logical, many of you have heard me talk about the LMR framework, which is the linear, active, multi-active, reactive, looking at culture and looking at it from an interdisciplinary way to analyze communication across cultures, and this would be more of a logical or logos type of paradigm. The last thing I wanted to share with you was something that I use in my classes. It's called the Business of Paradigms, and it's a really interesting video. Let me just show you the very first part of it, because I have not much time. In Switzerland, and how one day they had almost the entire market share for watchmaking, and then things changed. New technology came. In fact, they themselves invented the new technology, but they didn't protect it. And they offered this at the watch exhibit, and for one day to the next, they lost their market share down to 10% just because they didn't think to protect what they had invented, and they didn't think that quartz movement watch would be the future of watches. So going through examples like this, it just really makes you think, and it certainly makes students think. Another example is there's a car that's coming around a curve, yells at the driver coming in the other direction, pig, and the person's insulted, thinking that the person's just yelling something at them. Person goes around the corner and runs into the pig. And obviously the person was just trying to warn them. So people are going to be coming around corners yelling things at you. You can look at these things as either opportunities or threats, and that's really going to determine how you embrace these and whether or not you're able to capitalize and leverage these opportunities. So there are just numerous really inspirational examples throughout this video, and I'm sure that there are other videos out there. This is just the one that I happen to like and share with my classes. So another paradigm story that I think people don't think about and really enables them to enrich their education and consider how to engage students to the next level, especially in this age of technology when, I don't know about you, but a lot of my students are sitting there on their iPhones and their laptops and surfing the net and chatting with their friends. I'm not sure how you handle that, but I try to do things like this and would be certainly interested in what paradigms or what strategies you use in your classes. So let me open it up while do we have a couple minutes left? 4 minutes, okay. 4 minutes for questions, discussions, since I don't think we're going to get that video to work. Yes?
Might I offer a paradigm, as well describing the current paradigm in academia, in the schools?
Sure.
Where I would want to make an argument that the paradigm of ethos,
Mm-hmm.
and play that little piece.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about sustainability, and you can really boil it down to its essence being survivability. The species simply is not going to survive if you keep this up. You couple that with a predatory ethos.
Mm-hmm.
That is to say, we're down at that primitive species level. The predation basically no longer pays off. We have to have a communitarian approach to living. I'm wondering if the besides that paradigm shift, that we're thinking not so much of how we're going to eat each other, like it is now, the basis of the economics, but getting something a little bit more philosophical, or what we are about, not only that we survive as a species, as a physical entity, but there's something beyond that. The purpose of this species that differentiates us from the rest of the species is the ability to think about ourselves, think about things beyond the material. A little bit abstract, but I'm wondering if that might be a paradigm shift, that paradigm being the basis for education rather than the training. The training, I don't know what nice it is, the training being oriented toward the predatory, how you're going to survive as a material physical species, as opposed to the education, which would be the philosophical, which is conspicuously absent in our badly run school system. So how about that as a paradigm shift?
Good.
In ethos.
And how would you change that in our
I
schools?
would start introducing philosophy at all levels as a mandatory course to start off with, and developing an appreciation for thinking about something about how to be a predator.
Well,
That's what I would do. I would introduce that systematically. Every school, every course, in some way, in something, thinking about something beyond the material, something, i.e. philosophy, where you have more, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the European schools, certainly I can attest to Mexico, where philosophy is an integral part of the curriculum. That's not required in the United States. I would argue that you introduce more philosophy, you have more critical thinking, you have more thinking about something beyond making money. We don't have that in America, which seems to be totally foreign to this country.
Well, I know what you're saying. Go ahead.
It's along the lines of what Dr. Horn's saying. I've spoken about and mentioned executive function, just to take the examples you gave. So executive function makes you think outside the box.
Right.
Typical question.
Right.
I think the first question on the open-ended test is you're on a vacation in Orlando and you find you've forgotten your blood pressure medicine. What do you do? And depending on your answer, you'll rate it that way. But the point is you're thinking outside the box,
Right.
which is part of the function of philosophy.
Right.
So I can ask my class, you're turning around the corner and someone yells, pig. What is this about? And if you say, well, he's insulting me, that's like level 0.
Right.
You have executive function, there could be several items. Or you're a god at a zoo, a child falls into a cage, should you contact your supervisor? Should you jump in after him? The point is,
Right.
open-ended executive functions. Now,
Right.
I don't necessarily agree or disagree with what Dr. Horn said, but philosophy, by its nature, is like open-ended questions, and they encourage executive function. So,
Right.
what I've done in my classes, and like in one of the classes I teach a math course which is very specific and very technical. I'll walk in the first day and say the criteria for problems in this course, I just spoke about it, is that every question has at least 2 components. And I'm telling them I want them to at least use 2 parts of their brain. So this will not totally solve the problem, totally not solve it. And also in terms of your categories, which I said I'm finally beginning to learn, ethos, pathos, and logos, executive function uses all 3.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
And it doesn't have to just be logical, though I have a preference for logic,
Right.
because I know there are people who are emotional. I know there are people who use other things. The point is, I would emphasize executive function as part of any solution you have.
I think that's an excellent point. And really, we talked about those independently, but they all work together. You're absolutely right. They're integrated. You know, to your point, Dr. Horn, I do see a little bit of glimmer of hope, because if you look at our millennials, they're much more interested in quality rather than quantity when they're reviewing work situations or career options. You know, they'd much rather work for a company that has some social goals and maybe take less of a pay than work for a company that is purely about economics.
All right, let me ask you a question. It's more of a direct question. You'll see it tomorrow.
I think we're out of time. Yes, we're out of time. I don't want to. We'll talk later. We'll talk later.
You'll hear me tomorrow. You'll definitely hear me tomorrow.
I look forward to it. I look forward to everybody's comments. Okay. So.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Well, thanks.